What's happening? Back at it again, and today I want to show you how to create an automation that has multiple triggers and multiple options for actions following that trigger or those triggers. So let's give you an example. Let's say you are running a series of events, and each one of those events is unique, it's different. Each one of those events has a different form that participants fill out. And then based on the form, you want to be able to trigger a series of actions that follow from there. So maybe, event one, they get a certain text message follow up versus event two or email sequence, etc. I want to show you how to segment this and how to actually create an automation that allows you to really structure individual um, forms or individual triggers, but kind of make them in the same workflow so you can do less work. Okay, because less work is better in this case, and we're trying to make things as simple as possible. And so let me show you how to actually do this, and it'll all make sense once I'm starting to put the pieces together for it. Okay, so again, in this example, we're going to say I'm running a series of workshops, and I have multiple workshops. Let's just say I have two workshops that I'm going to be running, and in these two workshops, I want people to have the option to fill out a form. Each form's slightly different, and they're going to get tagged differently. So that's going to trigger a different series of emails or text messages, etc. Okay, and so that's the reason why we'd want to segment it. So from here, you can see in my account here, I'm in the automation section right here. So if you go into your DU account, go out on automations, it's going to bring up your workflows. You can just create one from scratch. We'll go ahead and do that. And let's go ahead and name this. So don't forget to name these because sometimes you might forget, even though you save it, and then you forget which one is which. So let's call this multiple trigger automation. I'll just put demo here for my own purposes. Okay, so in this case, as I mentioned, there's different events with different forms. And so we're going to say this first trigger is a form that gets submitted. And I'm just going to select some of my forms that I already have in here. So we'll go with that one. Okay, we're going to save that one. Oh, let me back up. So it's important to name these too. So as you can see, I selected the donation template for the form. So I'm going to make sure I label this, and I'll show you why in just a second. Okay, so as you can see, it's labeled there. Now let's say we're going to pick a separate form, and that separate form is going to be the same thing, but it's just a different form. So we're going to add a filter, form is, and it says gym one. Okay, so gym lead. And I'm going to label that gym as well so you can see the trigger name up here, gym. And let's add a third one just for funsies. And let's say we got a third form, which is this health one. Okay, let's just call it that one. Oops. And again, you want to name it. And for good reasons, I'll show you here in just a second. All right, so now we got three forms. We got a form that's for a donation to an event, a form that's for this gym one, and another form for this health form that I got. Okay, use your imagination on this. So now basically what we're telling this is anytime one of these forms is submitted, there's going to be something that happens. But if we don't tell it how to segment this, then anytime those three forms are submitted, it's going to do whatever you have on the bottom here. It doesn't matter what form is submitted. We don't want that happening. So what we want to do in this case is do an if-else statement or condition, we should call it, okay? So our first branch, we want this to pull from the donation one. So we're going to say workflow trigger because that's what this is. It's a trigger, okay? Is, and, oh, it's not going to pull it. And you know why? You got to save it. So hit save here. Once you save it, now it'll populate, okay? So go to if-else, okay? Again, we're going to name this branch to the donation option. And the trigger we're going to look for is this one right here. So form donation, form submitted donation is, and see it populates now. So we're going to choose that one, okay? That's one. We're going to add another branch and so on and so forth, right? The next branch was gym, as you can see right here. So we're going to go to workflow trigger is, and we're going to do gym. And then we'll do a third one. And obviously you can get a little bit more nuanced here if you wanted to, but we're making this somewhat simple. This is the health branch. So the workflow trigger is health. Okay, save that. Bam. Now you got three different options here, and then by default, it always puts a none field here when none of the conditions are met. It can take them down this particular juncture. So, excuse me. So in this case, we're not going to have that. Excuse me. We're not going to have to worry about that piece right here because this is pretty straightforward. Somebody that enters this workflow, they're only going to enter this workflow if they submit this form, or submit this form, and then it's going to take them through a series here. And so now from here, this is where you can get really nuanced. So let's say this next one, you're going to add a step, and maybe we're going to send them a particular text message. Okay, you might have a template in here. If you do, awesome. If you don't, you can do one from scratch. I'm just going to put something in there and say, hey, thanks for registering for donation. Obviously, it's not called that, but it is here. And then maybe you got a link here for something. Okay, could have been, maybe it's a payment link if that's what you did after the fact. I mean, you should probably collect payment before you do this, but just trying to think of ways that you could do this. It could be a follow-up for a link to where they're going to join you or book it on their calendar, right? Maybe it's a add to calendar link here, or maybe it's the actual location itself, or maybe you're just following up with them on it. Whatever the case is, that action is for that. Okay, and then maybe for the gym one, maybe it's another series of actions. It could be a text, or it could be an email that you're going to send to this particular list here. Okay, and I'm just going to call this test gym just for funsies. All right, and email to the gym. I'm just going to label it that. Okay, so hey everyone, thanks for registering for our health event. Link here to add to calendar. You can get as nuanced as you need to. Okay, I'm just doing this really quickly, but obviously if you need to add images, you could do that. If you want to add a link, if you had a preloaded template in here that you wanted to load, so let's just say it was that one, I could do that too. All sorts of things that you can do. Okay, I'm just going to put that in there for this example's purposes here. We're going to save that. And then maybe the health option, we're going to add another trigger or action, and it's going to be an email too. And I'm just cruising through this real quick here, but let's say it's going to be that one. Okay, you get the point. So now you can see how this is built out to where you have different forms that are submitted, the conditions split up into which form is submitted, and then follow-up actions to follow that. Okay, obviously there's a lot of other things you could do in between here. So for example, if somebody's submitting a form here, this particular form may get tagged a certain way. Okay, you may have this one tag this. I'm just going to add this for example purposes, and this one's going to have a separate tag. Okay, and so on and so forth. Okay, you might tag these differently for various reasons, and usually these reasons are because you're sending email campaigns out based on the particular tag that you have. Okay, or you might be adding them into your pipeline. Okay, you might be adding somebody to a particular segment of your pipeline, depending on what the tag is. Okay, so for this one, this is the health one, for example. I'm just saying that we're going to add them to this particular section. Okay. All right. And, all right. We're just going to pretend that's the case. All right. So now you can see where I'm going with this. Okay. So again, let me run it back here. You got three different forms. You got if-else conditions that tell it what form it's filling out, and based on what form it's filling out, that's the email you're sending out, or that's the tag you're attaching to it. And usually you're going to have the tag go before the actual communication goes out and whatnot. So we can move this if we need to. We'll say we're going to move it right here. Okay. So if you ever want to know how to do that too, you can move stuff around this way as well. By clicking on that, move action, tell it what you wanted to do. Okay. Right. We're arranging it. So now you can see forms are here, options are here. Based on the form, it's going to follow a sequence down here. It's going to tag them accordingly. In this case, it's going to add them to an opportunity, then it sends them an email. You know, you can get as creative with this as you see fit, but hopefully that makes sense. So again, let's say you got an event, you have some sort of event or product or launch or something that you're launching, but maybe there's 3 different versions of it, 3 different dates, any kind of combination thereof. Here's now a simple way where you can do that, where you create 3 different forms, create a trigger, or create a workflow with 3 different triggers, create an if-else statement to where each form branches off into its own actions or series of actions, and then you add your follow-up actions from that, tagging them, emails, text messages, opportunities, etc. All right. Hopefully that was useful and beneficial to you. I believe it was. That's why you're listening to this right now. And super thankful you tuned in. We will catch you on the next time.